So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Hazbin Hotel, so let's start the series. Charlie Morningstar questioned her boyfriend, Leviathan Vaughn Eldritch, did we really have to come here? That day, they were at the Rabbit Foot Combat Arena of the Wrath Ring, which was holding a major competition. All Leviathan could do was grin and take her hand. Leviathan clarified, yes, I've been wanting to see this for a while, and I want to share it with you, babe. Tall and lean, Leviathan had dark, bluish-gray skin, dark green short hair that was slicked back and had lighter roots, thick black eyebrows, eyes with red sclera and neon green irises, slit pupils and upper eyelids that were colored a darker shade of his skin, and a large mouth filled with sharp, neon green teeth. Leviathan now wore a green monster-like top hat with a brighter colored band, had several eyes, and sharp jaws. He also donned ombre green pinstripe dress slacks, a light green heel with darker toes and points, an untucked dress shirt, a neon green ascot underneath, and a matching coat with darker lapels and neon-colored trimmings. But Charlie was dressed in a pink-red gown with feathery embroidery at the bottom and frills. I'm just, not really into all this, said Charlie. The fact that her partner picked this for their date upset her because she wasn't a huge lover of mindless violence. I know, but, let's try to have some fun, Leviathan replied softly, despite the fact that the young Vaughn Eldritch had bought the tickets and they were seated near the ring. Charlie groaned and complied with his request. Charlie did not like the numerous rounds of horrific fighting and killings that the two witnessed. The announcer stated, "Okay everyone, we have another fantastic fight before we reach the semifinals. Bonesaw Mcgraw is to my right." This was done to get the crowd excited. The audience cheered when a jacked imp with a big beard, saw-patterned clothing, and a massive saw sword showed off his muscles. And the orange Maelstrom, our runner-up, is on my left. This fighter was considerably shorter than Bonesaw. He was dressed in a ragged poncho and a pair of old shorts that were extensively smeared with sweat, blood, and grime, but an orange mask with a spiral design and one eye hole concealed his face. He was obviously some kind of dog, as seen by his tail, ears, and digitigrade legs, but his fur was so dirty and coated, mostly dirt, blood, and sweat, that it was difficult to tell what color it was. Approximately 250 centimeters long and shaped like a butcher knife, he carried a large, partially rusted/chipped broadsword. Its handle was long enough for a small hand to grasp and drag it across the dirt, and its blade had two cutouts, one semicircular near the handle and one circle near the top, the former of which is appropriately fitting the sword's decapitation purpose. The announcer went on, looking from one to the other, "Bonesaw, Maelstrom, are you ready?" "Bonesaw is ready." Bonesaw shouted into the microphone when it was offered. Orange Maelstrom swayed visibly as she nodded. There's a problem, Charlie thought, focusing on the smaller fighter. She had a strong feeling that something was seriously wrong, but she wasn't sure why. Meanwhile, Charlie's intense stare led Leviathan to believe she was arguing. 3. As Orange Maelstrom and Bonesaw assumed fighting positions, the smaller fighter found it difficult to maintain his weapon. 2. Charlie's worries continued to grow. 1. The commentator released his hand. "Get started." Drawing it from his back, Bonesaw charged and swung his saw blade down on the Orange Maelstrom. The warrior lifted his sword to stop it, but it broke, killing 4 people as the semicircular part of the blade remained intact while the rest of it flew into the crowd. Maelstrom was then booted by Bonesaw, which knocked him back and caused him to stagger until he fell to his knees. The audience was diverse. It would be a waste of time to end the conflict too soon. In particular, because it's a contest. As Bonesaw daringly let Orange Maelstrom to stand, the announcer addressed the audience, and the Orange Maelstrom gets back up from Bonesaw's vicious attack, losing a chunk of his blade in the process. Can he gain control of this fight? Come on, Maelstrom, prove your ability to that dumbass, a voice called out at Charlie. Despite his wounds, Maelstrom stood swaying a little, holding his blade in both hands. As Bonesaw said, you can hardly sta, but you want more, brat. Bonesaw had to strengthen his defenses as Maelstrom charged forward, but the smaller fighter leaped at eye level and threw dirt in his eyes. You are a bastard. Maelstrom struck the ground without hesitation. He swung around, swinging as hard as he could, slipping just a little. Charlie was startled by something that made his broken sword easily sever Bonesaw's flesh and muscle as it cleaved into his chest, amid the cheers of the audience and Leviathan. The blood-covered sword started to partially reconstruct, looking fresh and heavier than before as Maelstrom fought to keep the blade up and the blood soaked into the metal. Maelstrom dropped his blade and flew after Bonesaw's fist struck his face, shattering his mask. Charlie's gaze expanded. Orange Maelstrom was the offspring of a fox demon. His dazed eyes blinked rapidly, one after the other, then focused. Above him, Bonesaw meant to stop and break him. He was pushed away by Maelstrom's tail, leaving a foot crater behind him. And the fighters aren't giving up. Enough. At this shout, a cloud of flames exploded between Bonesaw and Orange Maelstrom, and the audience went silent. Charlie came out of the fire, her horns showing in her rage. I said, "Who are you?" to Bonesaw. "My name is Princess of Hell, Charlie Morningstar." The throng whispered. The residents of Hell never saw the rage engraved on her face. "This is the end of it," Charlie exclaimed. The announcer gave him a nasty look and started to leave, but he stopped and him a loud-ass squeeze. He murmured, but princess. You put a child in peril for amusement. You're not ashamed. This competition is now over. Charlie asked, gesturing to Orange Maelstrom, who was looking at her from the ground. It was the pundit who laughed at Charlie. Sorry, princess, but this fight isn't over. The people want to see Maelstrom fight Bonesaw, and it is about money. If this fight doesn't happen, there's not gonna be any. The announcer became silent as Charlie threw a large pile of cash at him and struck him in the face. Charlie tossed another one and said, "Take that, and a little extra. Because I am buying this fighter from you, so Bonesaw can continue in your tournament," he said. With a cheeky grin, the announcer pulled the cash from his pocket. The announcer said, "Bonesaw Mgra moves on to the next round," as the crowd jeered and more than half cheered. Gazing past Charlie to his opponent, Bonesaw groaned and rolled his eyes. "You only live because of her mercy, brat." Bonesaw spat on the child before he left the stadium, expressing his contempt for the circumstance without arguing with Charlie. Charlie stared at the child after giving him the finger, and his expression changed significantly. Who remained on the ground? "Are you okay?" she said softly as she bent to meet his eye level. He coughed and said, "Yes, master." When Charlie realized she had just purchased this boy and made him her slave, he flushed. "What's your name?" Charlie asked him. "Naruto." After a few hours, Charlie was seated in a chair behind Naruto, who had his broken sword strapped to his back. Charlie's parents, Lucifer Morningstar and Lilith Morningstar, the king and queen of Hell, were standing in front of them. To her parents, Charlie said, "So, he will work for me." Lilith responded softly, I don't know, dear, while casting a critical glance at Naruto. He was between 10 and 12 years old. He was obviously famished and skinny. Lilith sighed and leaned into her palm, saying, I do think you could do better. Mother, I do believe Naruto will be a good addition for my protection. I witness his abilities. Charlie, Lucifer interrupted, gazing at his cherished baby daughter. Yes, father. Lucifer looked at the child and said, I say, we give him a trail run first, obviously, which made Naruto tense. Adding, we will give him time to recover, Lucifer said. Charlie grinned. She responded, thank you, and got to her feet. Come on, Naruto. Naruto disliked the sensation of the king and queen's gaze on his back, so he followed Charlie out. When two little insects fell in front of Naruto, he leaped outside. With the exception of the various shades of red on their fur and pupils, they were identical little devils that resembled adorable little demon dragons in suits. What the fuck? Razzle, dazzle, don't scare him. Charlie added, he will be my bodyguard and butler starting today, so please, get along with him, in response to Naruto's shock. After glancing at Naruto, Razzle and Dazzle nodded and drifted next to him. Naruto grasped the handle of his sword and peered from side to side, his terror evident. Razzle grinned, patted the fox's face, and sat on Naruto's shoulder. He whispered, soft. As he relaxed and Dazzle dropped into his arms. "Aw," Charlie said, so cute, as she snapped the photo. "Master." Charlie politely stated, "You don't need to call me that, Naruto," adding, "You can just call me Charlie." Naruto could not understand. "But, you're my master and the princess. Come along, let's get you cleaned up and some new clothing, also, let's get rid of this," she remarked, pointing to Charlie. "I know, but I would like it if you just called me by my name." As Charlie attempted to touch his blade, Naruto screamed, "No. His weapon is mine to keep." Charlie wasn't angry, but he was a little taken aback by the explosion. She said softly, okay, you can keep it." In an effort to avoid sabotaging their developing romance too soon. Naruto relaxed. "I apologize, Zabuza's sword is very valuable to me," Naruto replied. Charlie expressed regret for recommending that we throw away something so important, but who is Zabuza if it isn't too much? As they walked to the restroom, Naruto said nothing. Charlie sat quietly outside as Razzle and Dazzle guided, tidied, and cleaned Naruto. Wearing a bathrobe and brandishing his sword, Naruto emerged with the small dragons. His once filthy fur had turned dazzling and gleaming orange, with a white underside and a hint of blonde between his ears. The bandages have been taken from his eye. "Oh," said Charlie, "what took place?" "My last fight," replied Naruto. "I got hit in the eye and it swelled pretty bad, it's why I wore a mask today." "It makes sense. Let's get you dressed beautifully now. Why are you treating me so nicely?" Charlie was shocked by this question. "Were you trying to disguise me so you could rape me? You brought me here, bought me from them, and you're so nice. Everyone else at the Colosseum were assholes." "I'm a stranger to you," said Naruto, bewildered. Charlie's own spit smothered him. "What? I'm not, of course. Did that happen to you when you were there?" she screamed, terrified that the child had just inquired. Naruto gave a headshake. He replied, "But why are you so nice? Many threatened me with rape. Shouldn't you act like a brat since you are the princess?" Charlie sputtered and shoved Naruto toward their tailor. No, I am a mature adult, and I am not attracted to children. Now let's get your clothing. What are your expectations of me? While they were walking toward the tailor, Charlie remarked, You'll learn as you go, but simply put, you'll protect me. What are your expectations of me? While they were walking toward the tailor, Charlie remarked, You'll learn as you go, but simply put, you'll protect me. 1 week later. Give it a year, and if nothing changes, Lilith, their family's head butler, said. The butler bowed and whispered. I understand your majesty, he answered politely and professionally, adding, I'll start his training right away. In the interim. No, Naruto, for that, you use this fork, Charlie clarified rapidly. In the dining room, they were having lunch together. She tried to teach Naruto etiquette and politeness, but it wasn't working out the way she had hoped. It was normal to her, Charlie had grown up with this. Naruto didn't. Naruto asked, It's a fork. Why must different forks be used for different purposes? Naruto's physique had improved during the week, but he still lacked the proper muscle definition. He was dressed in nice slacks and a dress shirt. Charlie heard the door to the dining room open and wondered, how do I explain this? Mom was hands-on, Dad was hands-off, and the only other person who helped raise me. Extremely tiny cables pulled Naruto's arms off his chair and onto the floor before he could reach for the proper fork. She turned to the head butler and yelled, Walter. Charlie exploded out of the unexpected movement. When Walter remarked, Good afternoon, princess. Hey, asshole, let me go. With contempt, Walter's eyes slowly lowered themselves to gaze at the fox child. My, I guess manners isn't the only thing I am going to teach him, Walter said, gesturing with his wire-tied hands. This dog needs discipline, he said. The cables became more and more taut, and Naruto screamed. Walter, stop. Charlie said, perplexed, as Walter gave her a note. The king and queen have given me a year to train this child because of your efforts, Walter said, pausing to find the right words. Charlie became less enthusiastic. I understand, she said after understanding the reason. Since she hadn't made any headway with Naruto in a week, Walter was a better option. Charlie pleaded with Walter, who was holding Naruto beneath his arm, to, please, take care of him. Walter smiled warmly and placed a reassuring hand on her head. His words, I will do what a butler does, princess, allayed Charlie's anxieties. Then Walter took 4 steps, teleported away, and lowered his hand. Charlie took a seat again and started reading the note Walter had given her. The fuck? Walter's holiday residence on the periphery of the Pride Ring. After Walter left him, Naruto gave the ground a forceful slap. With his eyes fixed on his kidnapper, Naruto whispered, bastard. Tall and skinny, Walter wore black jeans, black shoes with purple highlights, a gray monocle in front of his left eye, wolf-cut hair tied up with a gray band and slicked to the back, though many strands are left out and cover his face, and occasionally chains around his waist. He completed his ensemble with black fingerless gloves and a black tie. However, Naruto caught a peek of his 2 teeth during his earlier sentence, and his complexion was unusually pale. Naruto thought, vampire, after hearing tales of the bloodsuckers. Walter remarked after Naruto's publication, it seems I have my work cut out for me. To assault Walter, Naruto jumped from his standing position, but instead he was encircled by cables and nearly strangled as he spun around and collided with a tree. I am Walter C. Dornez, head butler to the House of Morningstar, Walter said, approaching the fox with caution and brutality. I answer the door, I clean up the castle, I take out the trash, and I also enforce the rules of the house on snot-nosed brats like yourself, Walter said. Feeling the spot around Walter's neck where some of the cables had almost sliced it, Naruto scowled at him. Our king and queen have given me the task of turning you from this into a butler worthy of standing by our princess, Walter said, gesturing to Naruto. I don't need your help, Charlie was doing. Wires wound firmly around Naruto's muzzle, forcing it shut and silencing him. You should be happy, our king has allowed you to have this chance, responded Walter. Our queen, and myself, do not believe you have the right to be near Princess Charlie, let alone her butler. Walter pulled Naruto forward and helped him to his hands and knees. If it was up to Lady Lilith, I'd have killed you. Lord Lucifer has extended this offer of a better life to a mongrel like you, you should appreciate that, Walter told Naruto. Walter was a man of loyalty, integrity, and morality. He had been a member of the Morningstar family for a very long time before Charlie was born. He was involved in Charlie's early years. The butler was angry that his princess had squandered money on the devil, a glorified gladiator, and pleaded with her parents to keep him. I have 1 year, if you have not shown any signs of improvement, I am allowed to kill you, regardless of what Princess Charlie desires. Don't waste my time, her money, or the king's mercy, Walter stated when he released Naruto once more. Naruto was embarrassed. Naruto, follow me. I'll show you your accommodations. Actually, tomorrow is when I'll start your training, Walter said in a whisper, turning away from the furiously irate demon. Naruto reluctantly followed Walter into the house. Walter grabbed a little translucent globe from one of his shelves and inquired, "How skilled are you at magic?" With a raised eyebrow, Naruto, "Magic." Walter grinned at his little joke and sneered as he handed Naruto the orb and hummed, "Hold that in your hand. And it will take a sample of your magic," he mumbled. Naruto was given the orb. A flaming orange color, so powerful that it filled the space with light, instantly illuminated it. What is meant by this? When Walter removed it and the light restored to normal, Naruto questioned. His finger dug into Naruto's shoulder, arm, and chest. It means that you contain a tremendous amount of magic hidden within this scrawny body, he replied. I shall bring it out, but first. Walter produced a substantial pile of documents. We shall go over what your training shall be. In the interim, if a child didn't meet your expectations, you would gladly murder him, Charlie shouted. Charlie. Charlie felt furious. She was in the dining room eating with her folks. Young lady, Lilith said, cutting her daughter and husband off. Her words, you won't yell at the table. Charlie, feeling somewhat deflated or ashamed, took a seat. Why? Because that creature was a waste of money, and will be a waste of your time, if he does not change, responded Lilith. Be grateful I allowed your father's idea of 1 year's worth of time being dedicated to training, and thank Walter when he gets back for taking the task of doing said training. Lilith wasn't content. Her child thought they would take it after she wasted money and brought home a stray. If he does not prove himself useful, Lilith thundered, Walter will put him down. End of story. Do you understand? Yes, Mom, Charlie said feebly as he ate slowly. Charlie, Lucifer replied in a calm voice, we are just worried, Razzle and Dazzle are helpful, and I do think Naruto can do it, but from what you told us, he is just a random kid you purchased in wrath, we are just worried. Charlie looked away from her father and nodded. Lucifer's heart fell, and Lilith's face softened. Although she was aware that she was being severe, she thought that it was the right thing to do. She had a deep affection for her daughter. She wouldn't put Charlie in risk. Good night. Walter added an overcoat to his outfit and stated, I'm leaving. Please stay in your room, read the book I gave you, and go to bed. Do not leave the premises, and do not touch anything. Yes, sir, Naruto said, his rage clearly visible. As he moved away from the fox, the vampire grinned. Before teleporting to Wrath, he took a few steps. Specifically, the Rabbit Foot battleground. He went inside and went to the front desk. Excuse me, the male imp behind the counter asked sternly, what do you want? I want to meet the owner. The imp stood up and turned to Walter, saying, well, I'm sorry to say that, but the boss is a busy woman and she doesn't have time to. Walter put a business card in front of the man and cut him off. Welcome to the Rabbit Foot Combat Arena, sorry for keeping you waiting, he remarked, straightening his unkempt stance and assuming a polite demeanor. Following the imp to his boss's office, Walter laughed. Knock, knock. The voice of a woman said, enter, from behind the door. Walter went inside to see the arena's owner. She was rather tall. She had 3 eyes, 2 horns on her head that resembled rabbit ears, and a third blood-red eye on her forehead. Her other 2 eyes were pale. She had long gray hair and white fur. She had on a black work suit that was grab-on. There were numerous weapons, a stack of documents, and what Walter could presume were bloodstains on the floor surrounding her desk. Who is this? Walter put a business card at her desk and apologized for the delayed introduction. She picked it up and read it, my name is Walter C. Dornez, head butler of Lucifer. I am Kaguya, a pleasure, the newly christened Kaguya stated, placing the card back on her desk and bending into her hand. What does the king want with me or my business? Well, our princess recently made a purchase here. Ah, yes, she did while I was out of town on business, Kaguya muttered, scowling. And interrupted my tournament. Walter agreed, saying, she did by one of your fighters, a young fox named Naruto. Yes, I would like to know about him, how he got involved with this place, and how his training has gone, as I am his newest mentor. Kaguya's eyebrows went up. She stared at Walter for a minute as though analyzing him, and veins grew around her eyes, maybe focusing her attention. When Kaguya turned in her chair and opened a filing cabinet, the veins disappeared. She reached inside the files and took out 2 files. Kaguya turned and continued, smiling smugly, my time is precious, and my information is expensive. If you want all the information you seek, I'll need some incentive to give it to you, she said. Kaguya's eyebrows went up. She snatched the money and placed it on her desk, saying, I was thinking that. And maybe. She got up and unhooked the first 4 buttons of her suit with her hand. Oh, I see, said Walter. The bunny jumped all through the long night. Good morning. You smell like rabbit, Naruto said honestly to the vampire while he was drinking his tea. Do I? Walter said, seeming to be surprised, as he raised his arm to sniff his armpit. I don't think so, he said. When his stomach growled, Naruto flushed after rolling his eyes. Walter responded, well, it seems my duties as your mentor start now, putting down his cup. We shall begin with cooking, he continued. Razzle and Dazzle slept soundly on her bed while Charlie withdrew and massaged her forehead. Thinking, that should be everything, she glanced over her list on her bedside table once more. She carried everything to Walter's vacation house in a bag for Naruto. Charlie wanted him to have clothes, but also some other things to keep him busy during his breaks. Charlie was going to grab the bag and leave after double-checking, intending to take it herself, when she halted. Looking at Naruto's sword leaning against the corner of her room's wall, struggling under its massive weight, she walked to it and took it. Charlie pondered, perhaps I should get some help. However, this idea was swiftly disproved. Charlie deadpanned, if I ask my mother what I'm doing, she'll find out. Charlie hasn't been very pleased with Lilith since lunch. Charlie made the decision to buy Naruto some clothes and other things in order to divert her attention. Charlie and the two small devils softly awoke Razzle and Dazzle, who took the sack and sword to the window. Razzle and Charlie held the blade outside her window while she opened it. Charlie murmured, "Okay, I'm letting go," and Razzle nodded. Razzle was supposed to carry the blade slowly to the bottom, but as Charlie released it, it fell like dead weight, pulling Razzle with it. When it hit a boulder and clanged to the ground, Charlie and Dazzle flinched away, and as the handle hit Razzle, who was spread wide, little swirls formed in its eyes. Charlie chanted, "Please don't be hurt, please don't be hurt, please," as she grabbed Dazzle, placed the bag on her back, and collapsed on the floor. Charlie checked on Razzle, then got into her car and drove Razzle and Dazzle to the garage, where they pulled the sword. She left her house quietly. In the interim, Naruto wasn't content. Walter examined Naruto while they were cooking, then spent 3 hours teaching him the fundamentals before dragging him outdoors to get some exercise. Naruto was attempting to imitate Walter's wire technique while wearing his own fingerless gloves. Incorrect. You don't need to repeat it, I'm sure, once again mishandling the chords, Naruto screamed. We might as well skip this for today so I can drown you in the neighboring brook if you're going to lose your temper like that, Walter said seriously and without humor. Naruto became quiet and shivered. Naruto tried using the wires after turning back to his gloves. As he concentrated his magic on his wires, he thought, Walter said to channel magic through them, don't let the magic overflow, keep it thin and sharp. As Walter saw Naruto's power seep into the wires, his eyes narrowed. It was bloated, unpolished, and unmanageable. They were like blunt objects that caused concussion damage, unlike him, who could make the cables cut anything. Fuck, as the power went out, Naruto cried out, why am I even learning how to use these? Your weapon of choice is a hunk of metal on a stick, Walter explained to the fox. Effective in outdoor settings, but within the halls of Lucifer's castle, it is restricted by the size of the room. Learning this will give you more versatility in situations your weapon allows you, as if you know anything about my sword. Walter slanted his eyes as Naruto's fur bristled and refused to look at him. The executioner's blade, he said as though he were reading from a manual, is a butcher knife-looking sword that can't be chipped, broken, or rusted, because when it cleaves an enemy, it soaks in the blood, restoring itself with the iron, its previous owner. Naruto turned back to his studies. With a small sigh, Walter took out a cigarette. Walter had reviewed both reports after his return from Wrath the previous evening, and he now understood the type of child he was dealing with. The fox boy was too eager to take off his gloves, so Walter responded, okay, this training will end for now. We'll go to good old-fashioned hand-to-hand combat training, he said. After raising an eyebrow, Naruto grinned. At last, something I can comprehend. After 2 hours. Naruto writhed on the ground, his body hurt and bruised. Walter checked his watch and saw no cuts or scratches. He murmured, okay, take 5. Before being dragged to his holiday home's driveway. Charlie yelled, hello, from the car when the window was down, and Razzle and Dazzle flew out to greet Walter when the window was turned off. He turned to Charlie, grinned, and massaged them. "Princess," Walter said, bowing and putting his watch away before coming up to Charlie. "So why are you here?" "I came to see how Naruto was doing and to drop off some items for him." "Where is he now?" As she stepped out of her car and looked around, Charlie questioned. Walter waved his hand behind him. "Oh, Naruto, Lord." Charlie rushed to Naruto's side as Walter unpacked the car, revealing only the bag and Naruto's sword, as Razzle and Dazzle gazed worriedly at the wounded child. In the interim, Lilith questioned her husband, "Darling, have you seen Charlie?" Lilith couldn't find her daughter anywhere, but she needed to discuss something essential with Charlie. "No. I haven't seen her all day," Lucifer answered, raising his head from his desk. Lilith pursed her lips and rubbed her cheek, wondering where she might have gone. Lucifer could see the annoyed expression on Lilith's lips as she said, "I could call Leviathan's parents to see if she is over at his house again, or—" The king thought, "Oh, dear," as Lilith approached his desk, took out his telephone, phoned a number. Walter's holiday residence. The phone rang while Walter and Naruto, who was extensively bandaged, were making lunch and Razzle and Dazzle were bringing them materials or tools. Concerned that she knew who was calling, Charlie glanced at the phone. Charlie shook her head desperately, asking Walter not to answer, but Walter did. "Hello, Dornez." "Give Charlie the phone, Walter." Walter gave it to Charlie. He replied, "It's for you," his stern mask fracturing somewhat at Lilith's tone. Charlie looked at the phone as if it were a knife. Naruto observed his master picking up the phone. "Mother." "Charlie, why are you at Walter?" "I wanted to check up on." Lilith cut in, "You must return home because it's only been one day." "I just got." "I do not care, Charlie." Charlie furrowed her forehead and gritted her teeth in exasperation. She just wanted to end the call. She desired to reprimand her mother. She desired to rebel. Charlie's phone was taken from him by Naruto. "Oi, leave Charlie alone, she is an adult, so where she goes is none of your fucking business." To Walter's face palming and Charlie's surprise, Naruto stopped the conversation. In the interim, Lilith was furious as Lucifer yelled. Lucifer responded, gasping, "Oh, I like this kid," attempting, but failing, to hold back his laughter. "If he doesn't succeed, I'll wring his thin neck one more before letting him return," Lilith said, slamming the ancient telephone back into its receiver. Now, honey," Lucifer said quietly, "let's let Charlie spend time with him. After all, if he dislikes her, how will he carry out his duty?" Lilith agreed with Lucifer's comments, yet she was still enraged. It would be beneficial if Charlie and Naruto got along well. Following lunch. "The blade of my executioner!" Naruto exclaimed, ecstatic to behold his priceless weapon. Charlie replied, "I thought you'd want this on your person since Walter basically abducted you yesterday. Here, all the clothing I was able to get for you, plus a few other things I feel you might like," she continued as she gave Naruto the bag. Walter forced Naruto to bow by placing a hand on his back. "Say thank you." "Oh, thank you, Master." Charlie's cheeks were flushed. "Charlie, please just phone me." "You did it already." Naruto muttered, "Oh, slip of the tongue," as he turned his head away from the action. "Anyway, Naruto, go put your belongings away, I need to talk to Charlie," Walter said before releasing Naruto and turning to face Dazzle, Razzle, and the fox. Alone, he said. Naruto was excited, followed instructions, and went upstairs with his new outfit and weapon with Dazzle and Razzle. "What do you need to discuss with me, Walter?" Charlie inquired, noting Walter's solemn demeanor and tone. "I went to the combat arena last night where you purchased Naruto. I got information on Naruto, and his mentor, Zabuza. I recommend you read them when you get home," Walter said, holding up 2 portfolios with their names on them. "Kagaya, the arena's owner, kept these on her employees, so I think they'll be instructive," Walter said. Charlie concurred because she had questioned Naruto about Zabuza's identity after he blurted it out without receiving a response. "However, isn't this a breach of trust and privacy?" Charlie said tensely. She would trust Naruto because she wanted to. This seems to be a privacy infringement and a cheat. "I do believe that you will be the master he needs, not the masters he has known, especially that Arlong fellow," he said as he gave Charlie the documents. Charlie became anxious. Charlie nodded, then returned to her car and placed the documents inside. Before she, Razzle, and Dazzle got ready to head home as the sun started to set, she spent the remainder of the day with Walter and Naruto. Later, "Master, Charlie, Master." Charlie let out a groan and embraced Naruto. She saw Naruto wince in bewilderment. Her words, "Train hard, Naruto, I believe in you completely," gave him courage and encouragement. Naruto could not understand. He gave Charlie a hug in return, thinking, "So warm." "I will, Charlie." A smile of joy spread across her face. Charlie said, "I'll be back in a month to check up on you," and Naruto grinned. She then released him so Dazzle and Razzle could give him a hug. "Okay, I can't wait," Naruto said, grinning broadly. Charlie, Razzle, and Dazzle drove away after saying their last goodbyes. Walter answered, "Well, I hope you enjoyed today, Naruto. Because I won't be so lenient from here on out." "Vamp fuck, go ahead." Walter smiled at the challenge after sneering at Naruto's remarks. It's late at night. When Charlie got home, she was really scared. She walked into her house with Dazzle and Razzle in her arms. "Charlie." Charlie thought, "Here we go," focusing on her mother. "Mother, yes." Lilith was obviously not happy. "We need to talk. Is there any chance we could pick this up tomorrow? I'm exhausted." Charlie passed Lilith on his way to her room before she could respond. Lilith gave a start. As Charlie, Razzle, and Dazzle entered her room, Lilith thought, "She's never acted like this, even when she was going through her emo phase." A slight panic started to creep in. Princess said she deleted the information about Naruto and Zabuza while the little devils were washing Charlie. It occurred to Charlie when he read the one about Zabuza, "Pardon me, Naruto, but I need to know." Walter was in his vacation house, Skip, 4.5 months ago. In the moonlight on his balcony, Walter was sipping a glass of wine, smoking a cigarette, and reading a book. But he was drawn to the soft sound of a window opening. After extinguishing his cigarette, Walter leaped onto the wall and began to crawl like a lizard. "What?" Walter watched as Naruto crept into hiding and then leaped out of his bedroom window. The executioner's blade rested on his back. Naruto glanced around the home before he left. Now where does he think that he is going? Walter wondered. As he moved discreetly on the ground and followed Naruto, his body sank into what could be characterized as shade. The announcer indicated the boxer in question, Gra Bonesaw. Kagaya observed the battles from the comfort of her office, which included a large one-way mirror glass, as the crowd went insane. Who is his opponent? Kaguya gave the speaker a quick look. Why would I ruin the surprise, my lovely daughter? Kaguya grinned. The Rabbit Foot Combat Arena announcer announced, an old favorite, the Orange Maelstrom, has returned to the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest today, to roaring cheers from the audience. As Def Leppard's Rock of Ages blasted through the speakers, Naruto turned to go. Shouts of protest broke out as Naruto approached the arena's center. He had on his second blue poncho. Another orange mask with 2 eye holes was on him. Naruto stepped in front of his opponent, who flexed, and he held his sword on his back more easily than previously. Walter lit a cigarette and extinguished the smoke in the shade of the crowd. I guess you can take the dog out of the fight, but you can never take the fight out of the dog, he thought dejectedly. So, you returned here? The announcer held out the microphone for Naruto to speak, asking, how does it feel to be back, Orange Maelstrom, after 4 months away? The competition is lacking, Naruto grumbled, turning to face Bonesaw. I'd like to say it's good to be back, but... The incubus's head had a protruding vein. I'll rip you to pieces and pin you down, Bonesaw said, gripping his weapon tightly. Naruto snorted in agreement. Naruto responded, sure, you will, and pulled out the executioner's blade. In contrast to their previous match, where he struggled to keep it in the air, Bonesaw and the audience could see that Naruto held it easily. As Bonesaw prepared to fight, he tisked. Fighters, are you ready? The announcer yelled, begin. As Naruto twisted and shifted his weight into the upward swing, Bonesaw filled the room with a huge arc swing. As the 2 swords clashed, their arms trembled. Bonesaw's grip had become so weak that he almost dropped his blade during this single swing. After disengaging, Naruto leaped back and then up, catching Bonesaw's head in the weapon's hole before he hit the ground and forcibly yanked him over his body before smashing him to the ground. Walter arched an eyebrow. Naruto instinctively grasped the Bonesaw as its tail coiled around his neck and constricted around his throat. Without any delay, Bonesaw jumped to his knees, grabbed Naruto's ankle, spun around, and threw Naruto against the wall. The attacks have quickly been successful. As Naruto forced himself out of the wall, the announcer yelled, well, guess it's time for. Naruto said, Mgra, is that all you have, and held up his hands, saying, hand to hand, while Bonesaw got up and kicked the executioner's blade away. Before Naruto's fist struck his chest, Bonesaw had time to raise his hands. Before Naruto seized his hair and yanked his head into his knee, breaking many of the hot, muscular incubus's fangs, Bonesaw fell and was knocked out by the wind. What a jerk you are! Bonesaw yelled, you fooger, IWWA quill you, as his teeth slammed into the ground. He then quickly swung his saw blade at Naruto, tearing his poncho and striking his shoulder. Kicking his knees out from under him, Naruto dove behind Bonesaw. As he tried to dash to his weapon, Bonesaw was tripped by his tail and sent facepalm. Right before he intervened to save Naruto's life, Walter thought, oh, fuck. Naruto was over 24 feet away when he reached for his blade. He turned over on his back and started hurling rocks. No, do not go. The rocks bounced off Bonesaw's body without causing any pain. With wounded and broken teeth, he said, Pahihik. Ta take honor in, da. He came closer, ready to slay the fox with his blade, but was surprised when Naruto grinned. As Naruto clutched his hands, Bonesaw heard the twang of wires being twisted. The executioner's blade was drawn hard enough to cut Bonesaw's legs, and his eyes opened in awareness. When Bonesaw was covered in blood and the executioner's weapon fell into Naruto's hands, the crowd erupted. "No, no, please." Above his head, Naruto held his blade. Some in the crowd pleaded with Naruto to save Bonesaw, while others shouted for heads to roll. The ribs were broken when Naruto twisted his sword and drove the flat into Bonesaw's chest. Orange Maelstrom has won. As the audience applauded and the medical staff hurried out to tend to Bonesaw, Naruto raised his fist triumphantly. The moment Naruto left the arena, Naruto was shocked when he was jumped. "Am Mirko?" Shocked, Naruto whispered. Mirko was a rabbit demon with tan and white fur, huge bunny ears, a cotton tail, and pure silver-white hair. At the age of 12, she was marginally younger than Naruto. While training in a GI, did anyone teach you how to use wires? Mirko reached out to grasp Naruto's hand and examined the gloves on it before asking, "How is life with the princess, too? Have you been?" "That was so freaking cool." "Mirko, one thing at a time," Naruto said in a flushed whisper as he took off his mask. One may argue that he and Mirko were friends because they grew up together in the battle ring. "We'd lose a lot of money if he died, that, and his fans would be pissed," Mirko added as he carried Bonesaw on a stretcher wearing an oxygen mask. He pushed Naruto against the wall so the medical personnel could pass them. Naruto rolled his eyes and murmured, yeah, business," as Mirko reiterated one of the arena's assertions. "Anyway, how's life with the Princess of Hell?" Mirko's star-studded eyes widened as she asked. "I still can't believe people consider you an up-and-coming shaman," was Naruto's obligatory reply, which made the rabbit demon pinch his cheek. Well. Naruto's fur stood on end as he heard the familiar voice when Mirko let off of his cheek. He turned to face the one who had spoken, and his expression changed to one of irritation and anger. "Arlong." Arlong laughed. "You remember me," he said angrily. "I'm touched," he replied. Arlong was a big, strong, light blue saw-shark demon from Envy. He was recognizable by his saw-shaped nose, long, black hair that reached his shoulders and had a widow's peak, gills on both sides of his neck, a sun tattoo on the left side of his chest, and a saw-shark tattoo on his left forearm, all of which were surrounded by his hair. Notable features are his strong, sharp jaw and slender, ferocious light blue eyes. Arlong's attire made it clear that he was a champion in the ring. He wore many gems, such as a golden chain bracelet around his left wrist and 2 golden bracelets around each ankle, each with straw-like decorations hanging from it. Additionally, he appeared to be wearing rings on his hands, each set with a different jewel. He wore a bowler hat, a blue A-shirt with white stripes around his pecs, and loose pants that hung past his knee. Naruto turned his back because he wanted to leave. "If you're going to leave with that ugly tail between your legs, you might as well leave it," Arlong said theatrically, drawing attention from some employees. "What are you leaving? You don't deserve it, especially after what you did to Zabuza," Arlong murmured, putting his hand on the fox's shoulder as he walked by Naruto. "My brother's executioner's blade, of course," he replied. Naruto's fur remained standing on end, his eyes seething with repressed anger. "It was given to me, thus it's," Arlong said, grasping the handle of the sword and threatening to rip it from Naruto's back. However, Arlong's neck was surrounded by cables. "Let go," Naruto whispered fiercely as he tightened the cords around Arlong's neck while gazing up at the shark demon. His words were, "Or I'll kill you." Arlong's grin did not waver. He hung on tightly. Both Fox and Shark were putting pressure on each other to act. Alright, that's enough. After Mirko cut Naruto's head and pushed Arlong away, the wires relaxed, letting the demon depart. Mirko, this has nothing. My mom would be so excited to hear about this, Mirko replied, glaring at Arlong. Is that disrespectful? Arlong snorted and turned to go. His final words before departing were, I will reclaim the executioner's blade from my brother's killer. Naruto took a long breath and tried to collect his thoughts. I say you handled that decently, but you resorted to violence too quickly. Yes. Walter, what? How? Was Naruto's shocked cry as he observed Walter smoking. You're not as quiet as you think you are, Walter said, taking Naruto by the ear. Wow, wow, wow. Hey, Mirko shouted and attempted to stop Walter before she was bound in wires. Sorry, miss, but me and my ward must be leaving now, tell your mother that Walter said. Hello, Walter stated before releasing the bunny and yanked Naruto from the ring. He's Walter, thought Mirko. It took her a few moments to realize that she had nearly attacked the chief butler of the Morningstar family, who a few months earlier had raped her mother. Mirko shivered as her eyes became white circles. So that's where Naruto learned to use wires from, she thought. No wonder. Meanwhile, Pride Ring, Walter's vacation home. Walter said, explain yourself, as the two teleported into his kitchen after he had pulled Naruto away and untangled his connections. What prompted you to run tonight? Walter said. You meant to kill that man, didn't you? You stopped, but why? Walter asked. Naruto stated, because I want to be better for Master, without making eye contact. Walter raised an eyebrow. What caused the shark to have issues with you? Even though Naruto already knew the answer, Walter still wanted him to tell it. Walter asked no more questions. Walter leaned over. His ears flattened when Naruto's tail slid between his legs. He and Zabuza were brothers in arms, rivals, best friends, what have you, and one day. Naruto continued, taking his sword away from Arlong and setting it against the refrigerator before he sat down to examine it. My sword wasn't originally mine, its previous user was a champion named Zabuza. Walter sat down. What happened next? He asked calmly. Naruto bit his own lip. He didn't wish to appear weak, but after spending 4 months with Walter, he felt he could open up, if only a little. I killed Zabuza, the next day. Anyway, why did you leave last night? Walter said Naruto as he was rehearsing his usage of the wire. Don't I have enough training? The cigarette was not completely clean, with the end torn, but Walter was impressed by Naruto's growth and remarked, I wanted to put what you taught me into practical use, after he flexed his fingers and cut it. I'll develop bad habits if I train with you alone, Naruto stated. I am disappointed, Walter said as he took another cigarette. For what purpose? Walter explained with his arms folded, you focused solely on your swordsmanship and hand-to-hand fighting last night. But in the last seconds, you used the wires to grab your sword, cut off the man's legs, and then win the battle with your sword. Naruto responded, I used them my way, Walter, causing Walter to look at him menacingly. If that's what has your panties in a twist, then you're narrow-minded, he stated. The vampire butler looked at me with disbelief. Naruto looked at him in confusion as he struggled not to smile before giggling. Walter said, I do think that there is some hope for you, Naruto, as he gathered himself. The fuck, thought Naruto as Walter lit another cigarette. He never praises me, he thought. Skip. Razzle, dazzle, let's go, Charlie cried as she and her little demon bodyguards departed the castle and got into her car to go to Walter's vacation home. Lilith watched from the window as her daughter drove off. It had been 7 months since Naruto had been brought to their home, even if it had only been for a week, and their relationship had been in ruins ever after Lilith had Walter take him away for his year of training. Lilith frowned as Charlie's car slipped just out of her view. Before Charlie and Leviathans went to the stadium on that tragic day, Lilith and Charlie enjoyed a wonderful relationship. After 7 months, though, Charlie was either ignoring her, listening to her without taking in her words, or enduring her presence. The Queen of Hell did not approve of it. Not at all. 2 hours later. Naruto. Naruto turned to see Dazzle, Charlie, and Razzle while he was getting dressed. Master Charlie, he said, smoking out of his mouth. Charlie halted. What was that? Naruto turned to reveal that he was smoking and asked, what? Naruto. What? He shouted as the princess grabbed him. Why are you smoking? She violently shook him and yelled, you're 12, nearly 13, you shouldn't be smoking. Walter smokes. He is an idiot. Walter, nearby, chuckled and snuffed out his cigarette. I do pardon the shock, Charlie, but he did ask, and I relented, Walter explained, as Charlie squashed the cigarette from Naruto's lips. Did you permit this to take place? Her horns appeared, and Charlie screamed. Shortly after your last visit, Charlie cried in agony. Naruto gave Charlie a pathetic embrace. I'm sorry, Charlie. Charlie took a handkerchief from Dazzle and began to unwind. Skip, an hour. Happy birthday, Naruto, Charlie said as she walked away with a present. Ha! You are aware that today is your birthday? Charlie asked as Razzle and Dazzle accepted the present. Is it? Cocking his head, Naruto asked. Yes, it is. How are you aware? Charlie grimaced. After reading the data Walter had given her, she had revealed information she shouldn't have. Walter continued, remember, you told me a few months back, so, I planned this with Charlie, pulling the princess from the spotlight. Naruto considered it carefully. Did I? He asked himself. He pondered about it some longer, and then shrugged, which made Charlie sign with relief. Charlie asked, excited to meet Naruto's friend, anyway, who would you like to invite over for your birthday, with a smile. Well. Good night. Happy birthday, Naruto, Charlie, Walter, and Mirko all said the same thing as Naruto out the candles on a cake, the candles that made 13 going out. Razzle, Dazzle, Walter, Mirko, and Charlie all clapped when the lights were turned back on. Did you have any wishes? Mirko asked, as she embraced Naruto from behind. No, I don't need anything, Naruto replied, and Mirko gave him a noogie. Oh whoa wow whoa whoa. She said, you can't blow out candles and not make a wish, as she started her noogie. Okay, let me grant you a wish. Good, now, make the wish, but keep it to yourself, Mirko said, and expelled the adolescent. Naruto accepted a piece of cake that Walter had sliced. What would I wish for? He asked himself as he looked at it. A flashback. As he held him, Naruto's fur and clothing were smeared with Zabuza's blood. With his life disappearing and flashing in his eyes, Zabuza gave Naruto the executioner's blade feebly. He held it out in silence while Naruto's breaths became weaker and weaker. Zabuza! Naruto screamed, clutching the heavy sword handle. The demon's hand dropped off the handle of his sword and hit the ground, and his eyes went lifeless. The flashback's conclusion. While he was beginning to eat his cake, Naruto thought, I wish Sabuza was still here. He spat out, too sweet. Skip for a month. Not allowed to use that unless I, the princess, the queen, or the king allow it, Walter yelled, extracting his wires from inside Naruto's body. Nearly naked and covered with puncture wounds, Naruto was on his knees. Yes. I understand. Naruto huffed out before collapsing. That was far too dangerous, Walter thought as he pulled out a cigarette. He needs to be sealed so that it cannot be released without permission. The next day, Lucifer read the letter that Walter had sent him. I see, such a wild child, Lucifer said with a whistle before passing it to Lilith. She read the letter with disdain on her face before handing it to Charlie. I see, she said, having finished reading it. To be honest, I also dislike using seals. She paused, glancing at Lilith. Lilith frowned. Charlie pulled out a pen and wrote down her answer, then handed it back to Walter. I'll allow it, for Naruto's safety, she wrote. Charlie. Lilith started to say before her daughter left the room. Charlie stepped out, and Lilith staggered. Lucifer comforted his wife. Now, dear, this is good, he replied encouragingly. Charlie is growing into an independent woman, and we should be happy. Lilith nodded. Even though she knew Lucifer was correct, she didn't want things this way. Good night. 1, and 2, and 3. Charlie exclaimed as she and Naruto danced. Is this really necessary? In embarrassment, Naruto asked. Yes, Walter explained, Lady Charlie's butler will dance with her at gatherings if she is single. People won't respect our princess if you make her appear bad. That's not what you want, is it? Of course not, I understand, Naruto replied, devoting himself fully to his studies. Charlie couldn't help but smile. Charlie thought, you've come a long way since we met, remembering Naruto's condition 8 months before to his present metamorphosis. We're throwing a party soon, so you'd better get proficient in these methods as quickly as possible, Walter remarked, be a little faster. Charlie and Naruto continued to dance while Razzle and Dazzle filmed it for him. For memory's sake, you understand. 1, and 2, and 3. Charlie exclaimed as she and Naruto danced. Is this really necessary? In embarrassment, Naruto asked. Yes, said Walter, if Lady Charlie is unmarried, her butler will dance with her at events. If you make our princess look bad, people won't value her. You don't want that, do you? Of course not, I understand, Naruto replied, devoting himself fully to his studies. Charlie couldn't help but smile. Charlie thought, you've come a long way since we met, remembering Naruto's condition 8 months before to his present metamorphosis. You'd better master these procedures as soon as possible because we're hosting a party soon. Be a little speedier, Walter said. Charlie and Naruto continued to dance while Razzle and Dazzle filmed it for him. For memory's sake, you understand. Naruto stopped his movement and said, wait. You have a lover, don't you? The strange fish guy was with you at the fight arena when you bought me. Charlie nearly fell. Charlie's expression faltered, and, Leviathan, he and we're still together, but it has been rocky, has been for a while, unfortunately, Charlie said with a hint of sadness. Why do you ask? Well, if you have a partner, I was wondering. 10 minutes later. You want me to go to a fancy party with you? Mirko yelled loud enough for Walter and Charlie to hear, but Naruto's phone was not on speakerphone. Yeah, since it's my first fancy pantsy party, I thought I'd take you. Sure, a million times over. I have Tio get a dress ready, cried Mirko with obvious excitement. This party is what time? In. Naruto said, taking Charlie into consideration. 3 days. 3 days, Naruto said. I'll be ready, Mirko screamed and ended the call. Looks like someone has a date, Walter said with a giggle. I don't know what you are talking about, said Naruto, taking a cigarette box out of his pocket. Charlie shouted, grabbed the package, and burned it. Charlie, I just purchased that. You're too young to be smoking. My age is 13. It doesn't matter, you're far too young. Charlie took Naruto by the cheek and shouted, but the fox snagged her cheek in retaliation. Ow, go. Charlie cried while holding Naruto's other cheek. You are the first, Naruto spat back, pulling on Charlie's other cheek. Walter was laughing uncontrollably. After just 8 months of getting to know one another, Walter stepped in and broke them up, stating, and they already act like siblings. Walter could not contain his smile. Meanwhile, not good. Kagaya's eyes wavered. After thinking, all right, that's enough, she stood up and tapped her desk. After marching out of her office, Kagaya entered her arena and proceeded straight to Mirko's chamber. Mirko, why are you? Kagaya fell silent as she was hit in the face by a dress. What the? Kagaya cried as she removed the clothing and looked at it before going into her daughter's room. With a sports bra and boxer underwear on, Mirko was flinging every drawer and closet in the room while yelling, no, or, not good enough. Despite the fact that Mirko's room was feminine in style, it was mostly occupied by training gear, prizes, and other items that screamed athletic child. I need help. Mirko sobbed as she clutched her confused mother's leg. What's happening? Let's start by explaining that. I need a dress. Why? Have a party. Which party? Kagaya asked, perplexed as to why her daughter was such a blubbering mess. Mirko wailed in exasperation, I want to look nice for Naruto, who invited me to a fancy party. She was only 12 years old and only wanted to see Naruto, but she was wise enough to see that a formal event like this required elegance, grace, and cuteness. At least she's cute, I promise. Kagaya's eye twitched, and she gripped the bridge of her nose. It's Naruto, of course, she grumbled, but even though he's not here anymore, he's still giving me grief. Mirko. Kagaya put one hand on her daughter's weeping shoulders and wiped away her tears with the other. Should we go out and choose the perfect dress together? Meanwhile. Of course/not, he can bring his friend along, Lucifer and Lilith said at the same time. Lilith raised the objection. Charlie asked calmly, Mom, why can't he bring his friend, although he was actually annoyed? Because he needs to be protecting you, not goofing off with another problem, Lilith shot back without yelling. I don't see the problem, Lucifer said, reclining against the wall. Besides, Lilith, why not give the kid this one chance? He's not yet Charlie's butler or guard. Lilith deadpanned as Lucifer offered her a rosy-cheeked smile, big eyes, and a playful glow. Lilith knew she was going to lose. Simply accept Naruto's request that Mirko go with them to avoid a headache and a fight, or argue with Charlie/Lucifer about the fox. He can invite his friend, Lilith answered, deflated. Lucifer applauded and embraced and kissed his wife. Lilith blushed and grinned for a moment as she watched Charlie leave, then pulled out her phone to call Walter and tell him what had happened. Lilith suspected that she was slipping. Her relationship with her daughter was deteriorating. Morning, skip, 2 days. Naruto snorted and opened his eyes as his alarm went off. Naruto yawned and turned off his alarm, thinking, man. What another strange dream. First I was a devil/ghoul, then I was a fox/devil, then I was a supreme golden god, but I was human, and then I was a normal human who got bitten and became a hound. Naruto yawned again and got out of bed. Naruto wiped the sleep from his eyes and scratched his head before saying, weird dreams, anyway. Time to get my day started, he remarked. Naruto went to the bathroom, brushed his fur to make it shiny, and then put on his clothes. Breakfast, foods, basic education lasts for 3 hours. 2 hours of wire instruction, lunch, food, after 2 hours of sword training, an hour of magic training, free time, sleeping, showering, doing the dishes. Despite his psychological exhaustion, Naruto was thrilled as he lay on his bed. The next day, he and Charlie are going to have their first party. Naruto thought, I need to make sure I am on my best behavior, no, scratch that, I need to go beyond, before he heard his phone ping. Charlie had recently bought him a phone, and he saw that Mirko had called him on it. So excited for tomorrow, let me know when you are going to pick me up, because I want to make sure I am prepared, M replied. This was followed by a photo. It featured Mirko standing in front of a full-body mirror, holding her phone and shooting a self-portrait. The lady was wearing a dress. It had no back and was deep purple with white straps that fit her neck wonderfully and a golden crescent moon across her chest. His heart began to accelerate as Naruto responded that it was lovely. Sending a heart emoji took courage. Rabbit Foot Combat Arena. When Naruto responded, Mirko flushed. She had taken off and hung up her dress, and now she sat on her bed, staring at the screen of her phone. Mirko thought, oh God, he likes it, and couldn't stop smiling. Her heart felt like it might explode out of her chest. Despite being unusual, something that didn't usually happen, Mirko didn't know how much she enjoyed having Naruto around until after he and Charlie left. Gazing up at the ceiling, Mirko thought, it's really strange that after 12 years of growing up together, this happened after I lost him. A flashback. 8 months prior to. Did you do what? Kaguya was only partially listening as Mirko yelled at him. Kaguya said, why are you so surprised, while holding the cash and tallying the profit? You know, I've sold fighters. The Princess of Hell bought Naruto from me. But, mother, that was Naruto. How come you would sell my friend? Kaguya put the money down and counted it, then rolled her eyes. Raising her hands on her child's shoulders, Kaguya said, Mirko. She also said, Naruto is probably happier now, besides, as an upcoming champion, you don't need any distractions. The flashback's conclusion. Anger made Mirko's cheeks flush. She was not happy about that. She enjoyed fighting, so she entered combat venues. Nevertheless, fighting was much more fun with Naruto around. Her best friend, apart from her mother, whom she cherishes above everything, the individual she. Mirko's face turned redder, so she covered it with a cushion. The following night, skip. Goodbye, Walter, Kaguya shouted as Charlie's limousine pulled out of the combat arena, followed by, have a good night, Mirko. Walter used the mirror to wink at the older rabbit demon since Mirko was a little bashful. Charlie Morningstar, the princess of hell, was all around her. Yes, she had met Charlie before, but it wasn't for work, it was Naruto's birthday. Adding gold crescent moon earrings, purple lipstick, and purple eyeliner to the outfit she had shown Naruto the night before, Kaguya had styled her hair half up and half down after curling it. "I'm glad you're here, Mirko," Naruto whispered, looking at her. He donned a suit that looked like Walter's, but he wore a burned orange long-sleeved button-up shirt instead of the black one. "Me too," Mirko remarked, glancing at Naruto's hand. "I want to hold his hand." Charlie, meantime, thought the two children were adorable and smiled. Wearing lavish crimson, pink, and white clothing, she wore a crown on top of her head. As Wadler continued to drive, he answered, "Charlie, should I pick up Leviathan? It will take a few more minutes." Charlie's happiness abruptly diminished. Her voice was sorrowful as she said, "Sure." Naruto's ear twitched. "Is everything okay?" Naruto asked his master. "Yes, my name is Naruto. Please just focus on having fun with Mirko tonight." Charlie tried to put up a happy front, but there was no success. "Okay." Naruto concentrated on Mirko for the rest of the drive to the Von Eldritch home. 20 minutes later. "Hey, Mirko, check this out," Naruto said, adjusting his wires to imitate the vampire butler in a number of ways. Then Mirko chuckled as the wires took on her form. "Oh, Naruto." Mirko slapped Walter's arm amicably as he pulled into the Von Eldritch mansion's driveway. Charlie said, "Wait here, you two," as she stepped out after Walter had opened the door for her. "So, this Leviathan." Mirko began cautiously as the two adults left to go to the door. "He's Charlie's boyfriend. I've only seen him once, when Charlie bought me," Naruto explained, pulling out his cords. Mirko whispered, "Oh, I see," as he leaned on Naruto. Naruto flushed. The two waited quietly. Naruto felt a slight churn in his gut. As Naruto reflected, "I wish I had my sword with me." A flashback. "You can't bring your sword with us," Walter cautioned Naruto as he was fastening his tie. "Why not?" Walter remarked, "Because you have to physically carry it on your person, after tying his coat. You don't know storage magic yet, so a butler of Morningstar carrying a massive hunk of metal on a stick does not give a good impression." Naruto pouted and crossed his arms. When Walter said, "Don't pout, you look like a squash," the fox became even more agitated. "Teach that magic to me." Walter smiled. "Of course, I'll add it to your regimen." The flashback's conclusion. Naruto smiled. "I wonder what that's about," Mirko asked, smiling because she saw it as a good thing. Nothing really," said Naruto as Charlie and Leviathan got into the car and the door opened. Leviathan's happy grin turned to displeasure upon seeing Naruto and Mirko. He said, "Oh, you brought the brat, and he has a friend, great." Tick marks appeared on Naruto's and Mirko's foreheads. Leviathan did not hide his annoyance. He did not try to hide it. "Yes, we are here, sir," was Naruto's polite response. Ignoring the children, Leviathan rolled his eyes, held Charlie's hand, and looked out the window. Walter got back behind the wheel and switched the car on. "Next stop, the party," Walter stated as he drove there. The meeting. As Leviathan and Naruto entered, Charlie and Mirko were on their arms. While under a lot of stress, Naruto muttered in his mind, "Beyond best behavior, beyond best behavior." The party was beyond his wildest expectations. While he was employed at Rabbit Foot Combat Arena, the young people there would usually either be afraid or celebrating by sneaking alcohol into the establishment while the adults drank, took drugs, and so forth. This was simply too much for him to handle. Both Naruto and Mirko had similar thoughts about the party. Everyone was well dressed, everyone was talking in a calm manner, and the stink was overwhelming. Naruto thought, I would like to smoke, with a nervous feeling. Mirko gripped his arm more tightly. She felt as though she was being watched by unwanted eyes. Some were looking further than that, and she knew it. The two walked to the wall and leant against it, pausing along the way for some refreshments. A gathering? Naruto joked. Sure is, Mirko replied. The two adolescents just enjoyed each other's company while laughing. Charlie, meantime, sighed. Good, she thought, returning to her conversation with Leviathan's parents, her father, and her mother. At least they are being calm and having some fun. Leviathan's eye twitched in the meantime. He had spent the last 5 minutes observing Charlie's eyes, which were always fixed on Naruto and Mirko. Which made Leviathan very angry. So he started planning. The mood received a much-needed sense of calm as the little orchestra that was engaged continued to play soft music for a few minutes. Hey, Naruto, said Mirko with barely contained enthusiasm. Look at what I got, she said. Naruto looked into Mirko's hand. That's wine, Naruto said, surprised and on the verge of shouting. Mirko. The rabbit was actually holding a cup of wine. Mirko smiled widely and nodded her head. Would you like to test it? No, we can't, Charlie would. Come on, what's so different about this? We've stolen whiskey from Zabuza multiple times. Mirko asked. Naruto responded, we aren't doing this, and set the cup down on the windowsill. Well, Zabuza, anyway. Mirko jeered his response. His fur stood on point when Mirko said, you're no fun anymore, crossing her arms and turning her head away from Naruto. Wah! I'm still entertaining, of course. Then drink some. No. Mirko responded, putting a palm to her ear and mocking Naruto. What was that? All I hear is chilly air, so I suppose a window is open. We are not. What? The breeze rose in volume. It seemed like someone was pushing Naruto between two rocks. Drinking to lift her spirits or putting up with a pouting Mirko for the rest of the party was the choice. Naruto ruffled his hair a bit and then sighed in despair. Okay, but just one drink. As Naruto grabbed the glass and uttered, Mirko smiled triumphantly. He brought it to his lips. He gave me a disdainful glance. As the drink burned his throat, he handed it to Mirko and replied, bitter. She tasted it, and her face twisted in distaste. She put it on the window and complained, how can adults drink that? She paused in the middle of her statement as a tantalizing scent filled her senses. She said, carrot cake, as tears began to form in her mouth. Okay, let's go get some, Naruto said, making sure Mirko didn't run away. As the two walked across the room, they saw a huge carrot cake being cut into pieces and given to the people in line. Around Mirko's eyes, the moon was surrounded by stars as she held her own piece. She took a bite out of it after scooping some up with her fork. Heaven, was her thought as she was surrounded by angels that looked devilish and had a terrible radiance. You got to try some, Naruto, Mirko said, passing some to the fox. Naruto muttered, okay, after removing the fork from Mirko's grasp and biting into it. Oh, Lord, what's wrong? That's good. Mirko was totally destroyed. She thought, on the verge of tears, I wanted my, moment. Even though this was a great moment for her to feed him, Naruto had just snatched the fork instead. Naruto attempted to comfort Mirko, who was trembling silently and threatening to cry, until a massive platter of cake and other food splashed over the side of his face. The food exploded forth, covering Naruto's clothes and hitting Mirko, who put some on her dress, as the rest dropped down and struck his shoulder. Oops! Leviathan was standing with his hand out in defiance as Mirko and Naruto turned around. Leviathan said, "My bad, my hand slipped, I just get nervous around mutts," in a tone that was innocent, yet deadly. When he appeared, the local nobles, especially the Ars Goetia, jeered at him. The violent tendencies of Naruto and Mirko surfaced. Their will to fight and kill is not concealed. Leviathan smiled as the two began to approach. That's it. Smack! A stinging feeling on Leviathan's face broke the train of thought. That's enough, Leviathan. Charlie practically screamed, raising her fist after striking him. The daughter of Lucifer and Von Eldritch was suddenly the center of attention as she positioned herself between Leviathan and the children. A stinging feeling on Leviathan's face broke the train of thought. That's enough, Leviathan. After striking him, Charlie raised her hand and practically shrieked. The daughter of Lucifer and Von Eldritch was suddenly the center of attention as she positioned herself between Leviathan and the children. Leviathan laughed. "Wow, Charlie, you've never been this forward before, I like it," was Leviathan's response, a compliment meant to divert attention away from the situation at hand. Charlie's frown did not falter in its intensity. Rumors and whispering were so common as more Ars Goetia started to take notice that Lucifer, Lilith, Frederick, and Bethesda Von Eldritch, Leviathan's parents. "Oh, boy," Lucifer mumbled uneasily, "the one thing she inherited from Lilith and me is Charlie's explosive temper." Lucifer's mind was assaulted by brief recollections of Charlie's birth and early years. Lilith's forehead raised. Curiosity and anxiety throbbed in her veins. Although Frederick and Bethesda were concerned, they thought Charlie and Leviathan were adults and could manage things alone. Still, they were captivated by the drama of what could happen. "Oh, dear. Shut up, Stolas." Charlie's look began to irritate Leviathan. Knowing he couldn't change the subject, he said, "Charlie, why did you hit me? Being impolite is one thing, but bothering my pal was excessive." Leviathan laughed right in Charlie's face. "Your friend? You bought that mutt, Charlie." He points at Naruto, who was pointing daggers at the son of Von Eldritch with Mirko, the two of them holding hands as they attempted to murder him. From a glorified Colosseum in wrath, "How could something like that be your friend?" he asks. "It feels more like a servant kissing my boot to me." Charlie's horns appeared when her eyes changed. "Oh, are you curious as to why?" Leviathan put a hand on Charlie's hip and inserted a finger into his breast. "You've spent the last 8 months worrying about that thing behind you over rather than focusing on the important things," he added. "Important items? You mean yourself?" Charlie scoffed, folded her arms, and rolled her eyes. Charlie's burn caused the audience to gasp. Leviathan clenched his jaw until it nearly cracked. Charlie was grabbed by the forearm by Leviathan, who drew her close until their noses nearly touched. "Well, if you put it like that. Then, yeah, that is exahahahaoia." Charlie held on to whatever was causing his wrist pain, and Leviathan released him. Naruto gripped Leviathan's wrist like an iron vice, his claws digging into the noble's flesh. "Hey!" Naruto muttered darkly, "You bastard, don't touch my master with those dirty hands." Despite her amazement, Charlie remained motionless and uncommunicative. Walter, who was there, smiled with pride. As Walter thought, he's learned so much. Although Mirko put on a calm front, he was actually rooting for Naruto. She shouted, "Yes, fuck him up, Naruto," while dancing in a cheerleader outfit and holding orange and blue pom-poms. Lucifer was holding Lilith back. "They are adults," he told his wife. "Let's see how this develops." As an examination. To determine if Naruto is capable of acting responsibly, Lucy. Lilith said, turning from her husband to Frederick. "Fred. Beth. They are adults," Frederick shot back, sipping wine. "I want to see where this goes," said Bethesda, watching with great delight. Looking back at the skirmish, Lilith thought, "I'm surrounded by idiots." Naruto's grip strengthened. "Motherfucker. Let go." Leviathan yelled in agony as the bones in his wrist began to disintegrate. Naruto was hit across the face by him. Naruto's grip held, but his teeth relaxed. "Naruto." Naruto's ear twitched when Charlie stepped forward and took a power stance. Her head tilted back to allow her to view Leviathan peering down her nose, her left foot planted front, and her hand resting on her hip. Naruto took a big breath, releasing Control Art Restriction System Level 4 to Level 3. Remarked Naruto calmly. The room began to change in some way. It seems as if this affected the air itself as Naruto dug his fingers deeper into Leviathan's wrist. Naruto's pupils turned into a thick horizontal line that resembled a plus sign, his tail, which had been waving calmly, split in three, and black rings began to form around his eyes. Naruto released the noble's wrist and said, "Until the enemy is rendered." Ability restrictions lifted for limited use. His eyes brightened, giving the impression that he intended to brutalize Leviathan. "Silent," he said. Charlie swallowed a lump in her throat. This is what Walter was talking about when he asked that we limit Naruto's power, Charlie thought, recalling the materials Walter had given her. Naruto has a hard time controlling his abilities when in his full demon form, meaning this is a fraction of the power. Mirko thought, that killed Zabuza, as she started to tremble and breathe heavily. She was reminded vividly of Nine Tails as she saw her buddy hate Leviathan. Shame. Leviathan was feeling that way right now. Given that his wrist was cracked by a beast he found off the street. "You bastard," said Leviathan as he struck Naruto with his good hand. Naruto's gaze returned to Leviathan's eyes, even though the blow to his face had cut open his cheek. Naruto was struck by Leviathan again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, he poured power into his fist in a downward motion, sending Naruto crashing to the ground, his face cracking on the floor as he fell headfirst. Gulping, Leviathan. He had exerted himself too much, something he rarely did. Concerned, Mirko and Charlie wanted to see how Naruto was doing, but he stopped them when he pushed himself up with his hands and wrapped his legs around Leviathan's neck. Everyone watched as Naruto further shattered the ground by slamming Leviathan into it. Naruto stood up and pushed Leviathan to face him while he cracked his knuckles. "I'll return them, several times stronger than what you gave me," he said. "You punched me 8 times. Naruto raised his hand in a posture that would intensify the pain. 1. Leviathan's life began to flash before Walter's eyes as he prepared to step in. Enough. After 3 steps back, Naruto turned to face Charlie, his pupils reverting to their regular size, his tails coming together, and the rings around his eyes vanishing. "As you wish, master," Naruto said calmly, even though his eyes were filled with anger. It was as if an invisible tension and strain had lifted, and Leviathan could breathe. "Charlie. Then. I am done." "What?" She glanced down at him, and Charlie said, "I'm done, Leviathan. I'm ending our relationship." Everyone could hear the pin drop. "Oh, she dumped your ass," cried a random guy named Ars Goetia. Since they were so far away, their identities were kept a secret. Leviathan saw Charlie guiding Naruto and Mirko to her side while putting her hands on their shoulders. "Come on, this party is ruined," she said, turning into a monster. The three of them left, Walter waiting for them at the entrance. The Ars Goetia laughed at Leviathan as his parents approached him and left him on the ground. "How's your wrist, sweetie?" Bethesda asked her son as Frederick helped Leviathan rise up. Leviathan said, "I want to go to the hospital." "My wrist, it's broken," he said, his face lifeless. As Frederick, his wife, and kid left the celebration, he reflected, "Oh, fuck. Reality is slowly setting in." Lucifer wiped his sweat from his face. Lucifer replied, "Well, that was entertaining. Right?" Lilith, as he turned to face his wife. Lilith's hands were pressed to her forehead, cupped together. Lucifer was worried that she was emotionless. She let out a soft sigh. "Lucy." "Yes, dear. I need a bottle of wine." "All right, I'll get a cup." "I said bottle," Lucifer said, "a bottle, all for you," correctly. While the king went to get his wife a drink, the queen was just thinking. Meanwhile. "Ow. This is what happens when you get into a fight," Mirko said as she laid a sanitizing patch over Naruto's injured cheek. In the meantime, she was holding Charlie's face. As the shame set in, she wailed, "Why did I do it like that?" "Charlie, don't worry, you showed everyone that you aren't to be messed with." "OW, cried Naruto, winced. "Stay still," Mirko said as she tried to put a bandage on. Walter smiled as he drove. "I believe you carried yourself very well, my princess," replied Walter. "I do believe Naruto's words have merit." Charlie gave a nod. She agreed. She didn't feel like it, though. "Sorry you two had to deal with Leviathan," Charlie remarked, looking at Naruto and Mirko's soiled clothing. She was sorry for Leviathan's actions and attack. "No worries, Charlie, I just need to clean it," Mirko said, waving it away. Charlie was upset that her clothes had been ruined, even though it wasn't her fault. That and Naruto scared the shit-heel who did it, Mirko thought as she looked out the window, but she recklessly put her face against it. Mirko cried out, "Look," with delight. Charlie, Walter, and Naruto gazed out the window. It was a bakery. "Okay." Mirko shouted, "Let's get some carrot cake." Her age was evident in her joy at the thought of getting her favorite cake. Charlie smiled and let out a grunt. "Sure, let's go get some cake," Charlie replied with her trademark endearing smile, which made Mirko and Naruto smile as Walter arrived, also beaming. As soon as they were out of the car, Charlie's phone started ringing with text messages. Charlie gasped in dismay as she glanced at her phone. She thought irritably, "Elsa Von Eldritch," as she spotted several texts from Leviathan's younger sister, not 8, now 9, you know. The fact that Charlie's pet had injured her brother infuriated her. The list goes on and on. Charlie simply turned off Helsa. I'm not going to let that bitch ruin the rest of my night, she thought as Charlie entered the bakery. Later on, the limousine was stopped by Walter, who stated, "All right, Mirko, we're here." In wrath, Naruto stepped out of the limousine again and opened the door to let Mirko out. Oh. Oh. Mirko moaned and massaged her stomach. "I told you not to eat so much," Naruto said with sympathy. "It was worth it," Mirko moaned. She had eaten several dozen carrot cakes because they were little, and now she was enjoying the fruits of her labor. Naruto guided Mirko to the entrance of the rabbit foot combat arena. "I had a lot of fun," Naruto said Mirko, blushing slightly as he took her hand. She puffed up her cheeks and burped, "Me. Me too." Naruto's mind started to stray. Anxiety was rising and boiling inside him, and he felt as though his bladder was about to explode. Mirko. Yes. Charlie and Walter watched from the vehicle as the princess timidly rubbed Naruto's head while filming him. I was wondering if. Mirko's eyebrows went up. "What is it that you want to know?" "I'd like to take you out when your birthday comes around," Naruto remarked, turning away from the viewer. Mirko blushed and gave Naruto a hug. "Obviously," she said, laughing in Naruto's ear, just before she felt a sharp pain in her stomach. "Bleg. Mirko," exclaimed Naruto. Suddenly with vomit all over his back. "I apologize, I just couldn't help myself." Naruto groaned, took off his vest, and put it away. Naruto asked, turning to face Mirko, "Is there any on my butt?" Mirko, feeling much better now, smiled at the opportunity. "No, but it's a nice ass," she murmured, taking grip of his ass cheek. Naruto turned around, dropping the vest and covering his butt. Naruto stammered, "Mere Mirko." His face so crimson that he looked like a cherry. Mirko smiled, her face as red as. "But yeah, I'll take you up on the date on my birthday," Mirko remarked, laughing. Naruto had a flush on his cheeks. He wanted to retaliate. "Grab her boobs, embarrass her the way she just embarrassed you," was Naruto's thinking, but he pushed it from his mind. "Anyway, have a good night, Mirko," was Naruto's hasty response before he grabbed his vomit vest and walked away. Mirko grabbed Naruto's shoulder and leaned in to kiss his face. "Good night, Naruto," Mirko said with a victorious smile before she went inside her home. Where her lips had touched Naruto's cheek, there was a scorching sensation. With a pounding heart, not with embarrassment, Naruto cautiously made his way back to the limousine, ignoring Walter and Charlie's snickers and smiles. They went home after he dumped his repulsive vest in the nearby dustbin instead of putting it in the limousine. Meanwhile, Mirko felt flushed and her heart was pounding wildly in her chest. As she held her face, she repeated in her mind, "My heart feels all fluttery, dear God, 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 dear God." Mirko, what? Mirko stiffened as she saw her mother. "Mom. What took place? Was this something Naruto did?" Kagaya inquired as she walked up, her eyes widening at the food stains on her clothes. "How was the party?" she inquired. Mirko answered frantically, "What? No, no, it was someone else," she said, trying to shield her friend. "Is that correct?" Kagaya asked, glaring at her child. Mirko added, "Someone got rowdy and I got caught in the crossfire," leaving out a lot of details. Kagaya held her gaze for a few seconds before letting out a sigh. "Okay, Mirko, take a shower and go to bed," she murmured, embracing her daughter. "Okay, Mom," Mirko said, leaving her mother to go to her room to change and grab her towels. "One more thing, Mirko." "Yes," Mirko looked at her mother. Kagaya reddened and played with a lock of her hair. As she reddened further, she asked, "Can you get Walter's number for me when you see Naruto again?" Mirko saw without feeling. "Yes," was her response before she showered. Kagaya rolled her eyes and then proceeded to her office to complete additional paperwork. The next morning, Naruto was making breakfast with Walter. "Ding dong. I'll get it," Naruto said after washing his hands and heading for the door. He goes to the door and opens it. Naruto was instantly confused. No one was present. "Hey. Day sir," a voice with a New Orleans Cajun accent murmured from below. Naruto whirled around and jumped back in horror. "Holy fuck, who are you?" Naruto screamed. "Dar, Gerbil." The demon began, taking off his hat and putting it back on to greet Naruto in person. "Gerbil's the name, sir." Dr. Gerbil was a little gerbil demon. He had on a small bowler hat, a brown/green plaid coat. On his side was a small briefcase. "I'm a door-to-door salesman," he continued. "Do you want to see what I have to offer?" "Shit off." "Naruto, why are you shouting?" Walter said as he approached the door, seeing the fox on the ground, the door open, and the gerbil. "Hello, hey, would you like to look at the appliances I'm selling?" Dr. Gerbil put his little case on the floor and leaned down to open it, then asked. Walter remarked, "Sorry, my good sir," as he stopped Dr. Gerbil from opening it. "We are all good on appliances, so you may be on your way," he said. Yes, he was right. Naruto exclaimed, getting to his feet and gesturing to him, "Go." Dr. Gerbil watching Naruto, he looked directly into Naruto's big, beady eyes. Neither his face nor either of them showed emotion. The look was intense, uncomfortable, and eerie. It looked like he was studying the fox. He stood up, picked up his little bag. He took his small hat, tilted it, and put it back on his head. "Have a pleasant day," he said. To which he replied, "Understood, my good sirs." He turned and went down the street, humming a merry melody. Naruto shuddered, his face twisted in disgust. "You all right?" As Walter shut the door, Naruto clutched himself and made an effort to collect himself. He whispered, "No, that fucker is creepy." Meanwhile, Dr. Gerbil looked over his shoulder and noticed the door had been closed. Dr. Gerbil reached inside his pocket and took out 3 little cameras. Dr. Gerbil stared into the trees, tossed them into the trees, then looked at his watch to see the views from the camera. With a nod, he resumed his journey. "Good night," Naruto said to his friend on speaker phone as he dried off from his shower. "I tell you, Mirko. The little bastard was creepy, especially those eyes. He sounds creepy based on your description. If he shows up again, just don't answer the door," said Mirko on the opposite side. Naruto said, "Yeah, you're right." After thoroughly drying himself before beginning to brush his hairs. It was hard to live with hair everywhere, and Naruto wanted to appear good. With a light-hearted tone, Mirko asked, "What are you doing, anyway?" "Brushing myself." Mirko took a long time to respond. Mirko invited Naruto to FaceTime, and Naruto looked at his phone. "No," Naruto answered. "I wanted to see you nude." What made you decline? Complained Mirko. Naruto flushed. Good night, Mirko, he murmured quickly before hanging up. Naruto shook himself up. Meanwhile, Mirko pouted as she laid on her bed. He's no fun, Mirko thought as she texted Naruto good night. She turned out her light, rolled over with a smile, and closed her eyes to sleep. Dr. Gerbil dabbed at his sweat and corked a little vial of pink liquid. There, all done. Now, I wait. He said as he walked over to a desk and set the vial next to a green one. He began to cackle, his posture allowing his laugh to echo into the night.